Okay, hopefully, let me I need to check to make sure this thing's operating okay. S- it's the mute. That's for cam, and I know there's a way to see, but I'm still getting used to this. Okay, good. Looks like the audio is working. I just needed to make sure that was good. Okay, wanted to give an apology off of that last video that I posted, although I meant for you all to see that. However, that was the wrong video, and the one I meant to show you guys was the first video. So I decided why not go live? It's been a while, so let's go on from there. Now, see if I can find it. I gotta see if I can find it. I got it here somewhere. Some of you probably have already seen, if you saw the link I left in the description of that video, the channel's name is called Project Veritas, or I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But the main point of why I wanted to show you guys that first video is because there are key elements in that video that are actually linked to targeting, in case you were wondering. So I'm gonna play it for you guys to hear. See if I could find it. It should be around here somewhere. I think this is it, but I could be wrong. It's got to be the first video. Oh wait, I think if I do that, the icon shows. Okay, that's the other. Okay, yep, I found it. I found it. So the reason why I wanted to show this video to you, well, you can easily just get to the guy's channel from the last video I uploaded, but the just the audio alone from this video is good enough. The reason I wanted to show you all this video is because there are key elements in there that links this behavior to targeting. Now, in some of the other videos, there's a guy spilling the beans that they had these operations going on for at least 15 years. So this, even though the main focus of their videos is usually like around political values and whatnot, and like political corruption, that what's going on. The point I'm trying to bring is the elements that are in that video of these people confessing who are in these positions that they're in, who, well, some of them were formerly were in those positions, no, not anymore. But what it shows is that there are people out there in higher positions who are instinctively hiring people off the street to perpetrate, your crisis actors, your the perpetrators who you have to deal with every day, right? There are folks out there doing that. These in this video is people who are actually admitting to this. So if someone basically ends up going off saying, well, why would anybody want to do that? The thing is, there's a lot of reasons to this. But the fact of a few people admitting to it, that really does stand out. So I'm gonna go ahead and quit ranting. When the key points do come up, I'm gonna pause the video. Keep in mind, you guys are only going to be able to hear the audio, but if you go to my last vid that I uploaded, you could just go straight to the channel from there and watch it for yourself if you want to actually see the video from there.
of the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign, the culmination of a year-long investigation infiltrating the machine from the bottom all the way to the White House. There are concerns this election will be rigged. What you're about to see will make you uncomfortable and angry. It's graphic, uncensored, and disturbing. Our return.
Before I have this play any farther, I want to make sure something's made clear. Let's see, the ranting is important. It's the only time people really listen. Oh, the rant. Okay, I'm gonna pause it through different key elements in the video. I am going to do that to at least give you guys some, the key, give you an idea of what key points I'm pointing out in this video, so you know. One of the other things that I wanted to make sure is made clear. I do not believe I've never voted in my life. I just want to make sure that that's out of the way. If, in my honest belief, if anything was to ever have gotten done in favor of the people, it would have already long since been happened. From what I've witnessed, have seen some good on the right, but the problem is they have turned a blind eye to certain other things. Either they didn't have the incentive to do something, or they just didn't have enough manpower. I don't know what it was, but certain things did get a blind eye turned to. So the way I look at it, you got one people who are doing unfavorable things on one side towards the people, and then you got some of them doing a little bit of good. But I suspect it's just like it's basically playing good cop, bad cop at this point. At least that's from what my perspective sees.
Attorneys say there is strong evidence of criminality, and this is just part one.
Not for union guys? They'll do that. Oh yeah. You won. And they're rocking.
So I'm basically deputy rapid response director for the DNC for all things Trump on the ground. Nobody's really supposed to know about me.
You gotta say, we have mentally ill people. We hey, do shit. Make no mistake.
It's good. Caesar Vargas.
I got a priest to cry on camera once.
Brad, Bob, and Lux and myself are all part of the old school.
Let me know if the volume from this video is too loud, and I'll try to make some adjustments so it's at least a little bit easier for you all to listen to.
Method where it doesn't matter what the freaking legal and ethics people say. We need to win this motherfucker.
So Bob is really good friends with him, and talked to him this afternoon, and they're all in. If we can get 25 grand, they're all in.
There is a narrative that supporters at Trump rallies are violent, dangerous, looking to beat up protesters who don't agree with them. But our undercover investigation into the Hillary Clinton Democratic Party machine reveals a very different story.
If you're there and you're protesting and you do these actions, you will be attacked at Trump rallies. That's what we.
So that's part of the process. Like eliciting the reaction.
The whole point of it is we know that Trump's people will freak the fuck out. The security team will freak out, and his supporters will lose their shit.
This is Scott Fogel. He is the National Field Director for Americans United for Change. He used to work for People for the American Way, an organization funded by George Soros. He also has his own company called the Fogel Group. He is one.
Keep an eye on some of the things this guy's going to say, because it's going to be very important later on. What he's going to do is actually give away various different key points that prove that there are folks out there hiring people to do what they're doing. But you see, the point I'm trying to make is this is just one event, right? The whole event of the election of what was happening between both Hillary and Trump, even though it was several years ago. This is just one event. The thing that I in one of the videos later on, he mentions that they've done this for over 15 years, right? Some of the information of what he's going to say is going to stand out, and it's going to make you wonder, where have they gotten certain information to know that certain people would have different traits in their character? How would they have gotten that information? How did people's medical information get leaked? How did where the people who are there training, where are they getting this experience from too? That's another key point, right? So just listen in, because they're going to end up spilling the beans that points to a lot of these different factors. And I will pause it when it gets there, so don't worry.
He is one of the dark operatives for the Clinton campaign.
We are contracted directly with the DNC and the campaign, but
Yeah.
I am contracted to him, but I answer to the head of special events for the DNC and the head of the special events and political for the campaign. The campaign pays DNC, DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group goes and executes the shit out of that.
Democracy Partners is a private political consulting company with deep ties to Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama's White House, and the Democratic National Committee.
We are the primary mechanism as a team. Democracy Partners is the tip of the spear.
Wherever Trump and Pence are going to be, we have a bench.
Okay.
And we have a whole team across the country that does that. Both consultants and people from the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party apparatus and people from the campaign. My role, the campaign, is to manage all that.
Bob Creamer is Democracy Partners. He is the husband of Jan Schakowsky, a Democratic congresswoman from Chicago, and in 2005, he pled guilty to tax violations and bank fraud. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 months in prison and 11 months of house arrest. He founded Democracy Partners in 2011.
Just for a little orientation, Democracy Partners is kind of a group practice of a variety of consultants that do essentially a wide variety of different kinds of consulting.
I work with Bob Creamer one-to-one all the time. I'm the white hat, Democracy Partners. Bob Creamer is diabolical, and I love it. Yeah.
This investigation has revealed compelling evidence of a dark money conspiracy, a violation of federal campaign coordination laws between Hillary Clinton's campaign, Priorities USA, Hillary's super PAC, and the Democratic National Committee.
In case you're to basically make it more simplified, that's the paper trail.
We have a clip deliverable that we have to deliver every day for our groups of clients who are involved in these projects. AUFC, A4C, which is Alliance for Change, Alliance for Retired Americans, which is part of the AFL-CIO. They're one of our partners on the AUFC stuff, which has security. Depends on the issue. And then there's the DNC and the campaigns and priorities. Priorities is a big part of this too. The campaigns and DNC cannot coordinate with priorities, but I guarantee you that the people who run the super PACs all talk to each other, and we and a few other people are the hubs of that communication. Yeah.
Basically, compartmentalization, meaning one side of the party is communicating with one hub, and that hub is basically transferring that information over to the other side to where the other hub exists at. So information's basically, from one party goes through a hub and then it gets transferred over to another party. Hence compartmentalization. Usually this is a tactic used for those who do have against those who would have like a moral type of way of thinking. So this allows for corruption to go unseen. So, you will have some folks who think they're doing actual good, but what they're doing is actually aiding in the bad, pretty much.
So you're kind of like intermediaries between the super PACs and the DNC. But the DNC, they can't talk to each other. Okay. But you guys are kind of like,
we're consultants, so we're not the official entity. And so those conversations can be had between consultants who are working for different parts. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why there's Bob, who's the primary there, and I'm a sub to him, and I'm also primary to AUFC separately. That's why.
So there's like a Morse code between the DNC and the super PACs.
It's less of a Morse code than it is a text conversation that never ends. It's like that. It's kind of like an ongoing Pony Express.
Okay, so I mean
that's not as efficient as it could be, but that's because the law doesn't allow it. The thing that we have to watch
is making sure there's a double blind between the actual campaign and the actual DNC and what we're doing. There's a double blind there. So that they can plausibly deny that they didn't do anything about it.
Scott
Before I go any farther, that's another key element that a lot of these perpetrators use is plausible deniability. Let's say you're going out and about in your day and you're just minding your own business, right? Like you would usually do, but there are people consistently using behavioral tactics that are designed that is almost guaranteed to be put in your perception, right? Let's say you turn a corner, you're driving, you're getting ready to make a right-hand turn, and boom, there it is. It just shows up. The consistency is what gives everything away. The fact it isn't the fact that it happens, right? Because they're going to want you to go off of a single thing like that. That's the point. And you have to understand how this looks from a different perspective, right? So you have to look at this way as how someone else would see it for the first time. So, okay, it happens several different times, but these are forms of sensitization. The point is that other people are not going to understand that unless they've seen it the same way that you have seen it. So sometimes recording what goes on within your perception is a really good idea. It's not to say you having a camera like right on you, but you have the camera in position, not one connected to the network, because then again, they would be able to most likely get into that. But having one that is not connected to a network, that you can have like a body cam or something like that, and then you can just let it do the work, and you don't have to react to what they're doing, right? That's how you want it to that's how you want it to be. You want to still catch your evidence, but you don't want to be reacting to every little thing, because that's the whole point of why they showed up and did what they did in the first place.
Scott Fovel is Kramer's attack dog. Fovel and his people train the agitators to go to Trump rallies, and nothing is left to chance.
There's a script.
Oh, there is a script.
There's a script.
Okay.
There's a script of engagement. Sometimes the crazies bite, and sometimes the crazies don't bite. They're starting confrontations in the line, right? They're not starting confrontations
The volunteers
in the rally, because once they're inside the rally, they're under Secret Service's control. When they're outside the rally,
they're more affected out. They're harder to get in.
The media will cover it no matter where it happens.
I assume it's always in the rally.
Initiating the conflict by having leading conversations with people who are naturally psychotic.
Right.
Okay. I mean, honestly, it is not hard to get some of these assholes to pop off.
Right.
It's a matter of showing up to want to get into the rally in a Planned Parenthood t-shirt, or Trump is a Nazi. You can message to draw them out and draw them to punch you.
Fovel both.
So before I go any further, as you can tell, their tactics are planned out, right? Their tactics are planned out before they're even executed. Depending on the circumstantial situation, the way it's going, usually the repetition is within a fact designed to trigger irritation. It's designed to trigger discomfort. It's designed to constantly be right there in your face intentionally. It's made very intentional because of the significance. You need to call out all the details. If you're basically walking down the sidewalk and the traffic it's on your right hand side is going in the opposite direction, the fact that the same behavior is being repeatedly happening shows that there's obviously people intensively doing that. Come on. I get there will be people driving the same thing, using the same thing. The fact of whatever it is, or whatever that they're showing, whatever that they're doing is completely irrelevant. But it's the fact that it's something that bothers you is what counts. If it's something that bothers you, then it's going to be something that they're most likely are going to be dependent upon, and something they're going to continuously do. So let's say you call out what's going to happen before it happens, right? And it does happen. How would you have known that? That's key evidence that works to your benefit because you called something out before it happened. You shouldn't have known that was going to happen, though, right? And not only did it happen once, it happened several different times. One of the key factors that they want to try to make it seem is that they do this behavior in public areas for a reason. It's because they're relying upon those who are not involved, right? They're relying on those people's perception to basically go along with their lies of what they're trying to basically show you off as through covert means of agitation. So don't get irritated by these assholes. Instead, use their actions to your advantage and use it as evidence. And if someone wants to try to call somebody crazy, here's the deal. That's just a sorry ass tactic that they use to just be dismissive, to not for them not to be asked questions. That's just all it is. It's just a means to basically prevent questioning. That's all it is. It's just a means to pretty much discredit, throw away any type of suspicions on their side. They want us to be questioned, but they don't want their actions to be questioned, if that makes sense.
Posts about the extent of his network of operatives.
So here, you have a schedule of events. We update this on an ongoing, rolling basis every morning.
Those are all the Trump appearances.
These are all the Trump and Pence appearances. Tomorrow, for instance, we are turning out 500 people in front of the Trump International in DC. We have to have people prepared to go wherever these events are, which means we have to have a central kind of agitator training.
Yep.
Now, we have a built-in group of people in New York who do this.
Okay.
We have a built-in group of people in DC who do
I was
this.
gonna say, are they localized?
We have a group of people in Vegas. We have a group of people in Colorado. We have a group of people in Minneapolis.
So I'm basically that.
So what you can take from that is they have groups of folks who they train for these exact purposes in almost every damn state. People now the levels of where this stuff consists of, because of their positions alone, this goes from certain branches, people who are in certain branches of government, and below that, certain people who are in branches in military, with those two categories being at the pinnacle at the top. You could say this also dives down to certain people who are somewhat retired. Below that, it's going to consist of your local police department and then probably retired policies or something like that. And below that, it's going to be your local neighborhood watch. And then below that, your localized citizens. Anything that would seem to have the capabilities of some sort of surveillance, they're going to have their midst into that. Okay, that's just a given. However, the way I go about this, of dealing with it when it comes to counter surveillance, my question is, I point out the various things that they don't want me to do. As I'm filming what's going on in my perception, I'm pointing out the fact that I'm not doing anything. What they're doing is trying to say that, you got to watch this person because he's no good, right? I'm basically recording what they're doing, at the same time recording the fact that I'm not doing anything and pointing out the fact that, well, what I'm doing is obviously shouldn't be provoking anybody, because clearly, as you can see, I'm not out here starting anything. But lo and behold, look at this repetition that's actually happening over towards my right hand side. As an easy example, look at all the people who are trying to trigger at, when they show up and they act out and they desperately try to get your attention. Look at the folks who are trying to basically trigger agitation in their behavior. Look at the fact that you got random folks doing what they're doing. Is it really me who's trying to trigger this agitation, or is it these perpetrators who are hired crisis actors that they're putting out on these streets? Before we go any further, you gotta understand, the age group, there is no gap, or there is no line, or no kind of line when it comes to the age gap. These crisis actors, these perpetrators, I figured something out that I long since suspected for a while. I'm pretty certain a lot of other target individuals are aware of this to some degree, but they probably don't want to believe it some of these perpetrators have kids of their own, so I suspect they're teaching their kids how to do the same thing, and these kids are acting out the behavior which they're learning from their parents in the schools. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I really suspect that is happening, and I'm only saying that because of some of the stuff I went through as a child. Thinking back, a lot of that seems way too close to that. It seems way too close to the truth for that part. Other than that, the age group goes all the way to elderly, as well as middle age and young adulthood and whatnot, and as well as teenage years. So there really is no boundary there. There's no boundary. They'll hire the elderly to do their dirty work, man. They will do that.
Rapid response director. This guy is Aaron Black. He works full-time for Creamer at Democracy Partners. He directs the spontaneous protests at Trump and Pence events. His real name is actually Aaron Minter. We don't know why he uses the name Black.
Nobody's really supposed to know about me. So the Chicago protest, shut all that. That was us. It was more him than me. But none of this is supposed to come back to us because we want it coming from people. We don't want it to come from the party. So if we do a protest and it's brown DNC protest, it's right away the press going to say partisan. But if I'm in there coordinating with all the groups on the ground, sort of playing field general, but they're the ones talking to the cameras, then it's actually people. But if we send out press advisories with DNC on them and the campaign,
yeah, that is true. For some of the stuff I've seen, here's the deal. I don't believe that it depends upon the level of how involved the person who are most likely those on the field, the crisis actors and whatnot, or the agitators. It depends on how involved they are. If you get right down to it, you'll start to realize that these people secretly do not trust each other. And I'm saying that for a good reason. Think about it. You have someone who has known family members for years, right? Yet they end up betraying their family for a complete stranger who they just met, all because they paid them off to do it. That, for a fact that a person who would do something like that, that is a prime example right there. The fact that they would even do it to a complete stranger unprovoked is also, proof enough of that too. The whole thing that's going on is just a show. It's just a show in a game that's being played, but the point is it cannot, reach its end goal unless you participate in it. So let's say they're doing something that that's meant to agitate me. Well, I could do something that pisses them off back. What they want me to do is watch what's going on and engage, right? So I'll just sit back, relax, pop open a newspaper, fuck that show, right? I'll just ignore it. If they want to get loud, start talking all kinds of crap, I'll just pop in the earphones, mute them. Don't even have to listen to it. Don't even have to see it. And the entire time it's going on, I can let my equipment do the work for me in catching the events that are happening. I don't even have to engage into it because then their actions become pointless. The whole point is to try to, basically try to provoke me into engaging in the first place. But I'm not going to give them that leverage.
We have to be really careful because what we don't need is for it to show up on CNN that the DNC paid for X people to. That's not going to happen.
And that's the prime example of them not wanting to, the wrong type of eyes to catch wind of what's going on. There's certain people they don't care about seeing what's going on because they're already on the same page, but there are other folks who they don't want to be exposed to.
Zulema Rodriguez and Aaron Black are bragging about a protest last March that turned extremely violent. and led the Trump campaign to cancel a huge rally. Fights broke out between protesters and Trump supporters, and 2 Chicago police officers were injured. Based on our reporting, the event was not spontaneous.
We have a call with the campaign every day to go over the focuses that need to be undertaken.
I just got a call from the campaign and the DNC.
We met her at the Republican convention in Cleveland in July.
And then we also did Arizona. Yeah, really?
This Clinton dark machine is also prepared for the fallout from the violence they foment at the Trump rallies and other demonstrations.
Because the one thing I'm never going to do is have some kid get punched out at a rally and then not have his doctor bill and his legal bill if he gets arrested paid for it.
Ultimately, the whole
That's another telltale. They'll do certain things, but bailing them out, I don't think they're going to do that. Like if it comes to any of these perpetrators going straight to jail for what they've done, they're not going to get too involved with that because that's getting way, that's going to be on record, right? As far as a doctor bill is concerned, I think that's just something they can just go, they can basically just pay for themselves. But when it comes to being, behind bars, that's a whole different scenario because, if you ain't got the cash on hand, then someone's just going to have to pay that themselves. It's going to have to come from somewhere. So I don't know how they would do that. I don't think they would go that far though. I don't know if this is true, but this came from the Nappy Headed. I think someone from Nappy Headed Roots aside who he interviewed before on his channel, and there was a guy who basically spilled the beans, basically stating that the Congress was involved. I think like what do they call that place that's in the center of town? I don't know whether they call it the courthouse. Probably not the courthouse. It's something. It's like where all the senators and stuff was going to be at. And usually the governor as well. So what he called out was that a lot of those individuals are usually involved when it comes to target individuals within a certain vicinity or area. I won't say every one of them are involved because, well, we don't know that, but you can very well rest assured that there are groups of folks who probably are involved. Now, he basically, it's been so long since I've seen that video. He mentioned one thing that stood out to me though. I believe they signed an agreement, or someone mentioned that they signed an agreement that if it gets way too far, right, and they do wind up getting arrested, that the program who hired them basically just they just disregard all connections with that person, right? And if that person ever comes forward with said evidence against those people, it's like a legal binding contract that they have against them or something. I don't know. They make them sign documentations because they are fearful of the fact of them hiring somebody and that person who they hired is going to basically turn against them.
The whole endeavor is to get negative press of Trump and his supporters in local and national media.
It's something that Bob and I obsess about. Is we're not going to go to an effort to just do an event and not have anybody show up or not have it covered. We have to get coverage.
These guys have been doing their dirty tricks for some time, even before Trump won the nomination.
So I probably know your work.
I know you do. But
What's the, you mean like a situation where it's sort of like
remember the Iowa State Fair thing where Scott Walker grabbed the sign out of the dude's hand, and then the dude gets kind of roughed up right in front of the stage, right?
Yeah.
The guy that roughed up is my counterpart who works for Bob.
and that was like storyboarded, that him getting roughed up and everything.
Scenario.
So you like lent yourself to that situation and it happened.
We not only
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
We planted multiple people in that front area around him and in the back to make sure there wasn't just a action that happened up front. There was also a reaction that happened out back.
Remember this woman? Her name?
Okay, you guys, if you all have seen it, the McDonald's video that I made a while back, I think this was when I was in Louisiana. What he just said, literally relates to how I felt around that area when it went down, right? I didn't trust the kids who they sent to basically perpetrate around me, and I damn sure didn't trust the staff. I damn sure didn't trust the cops, which is why I never called them for legal purposes. I kept mentioning that I never called them. The staff called them, but once they showed up, they did try to twist the story to make it seem like I called them, but I wasn't having that. So I knew automatically they had a set of officers already planted in the area to respond, but they weren't going to just show up. I'm not sure what happened to the footage I had before that because as I was walking out from my apartment, right? I'm walking down the road and then I got to go down this long stretch road over the bridge and then there's going to be this intersection. At this intersection, there's a Shell gas station on the other side of the road. There's a like a small strip mall with a grocery store and stuff on my right hand side. And then there's going to be the pharmacy right at the corner. So I'm turning around the direction where the pharmacy is at, and I see that there's an obvious squad car parked right there. So I'm walking down from there, and then I think like there's another building between both the pharmacy and the McDonald's. I could be mistaken about that. So I make my way to the McDonald's, and then this was because I still had to pay my bill, but I didn't do it when I was supposed to. So I ended up having to use McDonald's Wi-Fi. So they knew what I was doing, and they decided to use that as an opportunity to perpetrate, right? Because they didn't want me uploading a certain video. So I ended up getting the whole, just saying F it, might as well record what's going on and go from there. In reality, again, like I said before, I wasn't going there to just cause any problems. But damn near everybody in that restaurant was a perp, dude. Damn near every one of them were. The entirety of the people in there, from the parents of those kids to the kids themselves, to the staff, to the law enforcement, man, it was just ridiculous, honestly. People just shilling out left and right, not giving a damn.
Her name is Shirley Teeter. She is a 69-year-old sufferer of COPD. According to numerous news stories at the time, she was assaulted at a Trump rally in North Carolina by Trump supporter Richard Campbell. The media played her story across the country for days. She was one of.
Okay, so this is as you can tell, this is like I guess you could say she's slightly over middle age, or she just is middle age. But this is proof that there is no boundary line when it comes to who they hire to do their perpetrating acts.
One of our activists.
She's one of your activists.
Who had been trained up to bird dogs.
Yes.
So the term bird dogging, you put people in the line at the front, which means they have to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. So they're getting the front of the rally so that when Trump comes down the rope line, they're the ones asking him the question in front of the reporters because they're pre-placed there. To funnel that kind of.
You hear what he just said, right? Pre-placed, and how they're set up earlier ahead of time. So whenever you go out to your day-to-day, don't these perpetrators be out there in the same type of fashion? Right? So this means that they already have people set in place based on different times when they believe you're going to most likely head out. I suspect whenever a target individual actually moves, this is what they'll do. What they'll do is they'll go covert, and then they'll try to figure out what your day-to-day schedule is, what time you're going to work, what time you're getting off of work, what time you're going to end up usually going out. Let's say if you're going to the gym, right? What time this person is going to be doing that? What days is this person off? What stores or restaurants does this person visit? They're going to have a script and a set of scenarios and a set of agents set up around the perimeters of those areas. and they're going to have them there at the exact time, pre-placed ahead of time before you even make it to where you're going, as well as the minute you walk out the door. To make it more simplified, they do surveillance, and here's why you can't just, judge a book by its cover. You can't make the assumption that everyone is involved, because that's not entirely the case. Considering the technology side of this, think about it from this perspective. When it comes to geoengineering, everybody's breathing it in, right? When it comes to the domestic quilt, almost everybody has ingested that stuff without, those who don't know, some point in time. So if they can, there's been a saying that they can jump in and out of a person, right? So let's say that they're doing surveillance where you're at currently, and then they're doing surveillance of where you're going to be going to ahead of time, right? So what they're doing is they're surveying the area to see what they can do, who's most likely going to be traversing towards you. And let's say one of the the acts of repetition that they're going to use is they're going to jump into that person to get, make them act out as soon as you're crossing paths with that person, giving you the idea that that person is probably a perpetrator, when in reality that's just someone who they've used these behavioral modification weapons on, or they just use the direct, whatever type of psychotronic weapons that they're using on people. So that gives you the false idealism that that person might be involved, and you never know. Maybe could that person be involved? I give people the benefit of a doubt. The way I handle this, I give them the benefit of a doubt, and then I assess their behavior off of that. Usually, if a person's highly involved, you're going to know. First off, are they intentionally going out of their way to be within your perception? That's key element number one. Are they repetitively doing certain things? And here's the one way I test it out. Let's say I pull out a camera, right? Do they stop talking about the scripted conversation when I pull the camera out? Or do they continue? And even if they do continue, that is the conversation just for a brief moment interrupted as I pull the camera out? Is it? If it is, that's telling me that obviously my behavior is in conjunction with the conversation that those individuals are having. But if they're just minding their own business and what they're saying has no relevance to me at all, it shouldn't bother them. If they're not doing anything wrong, it shouldn't bother them, right? But let's just say it for what it is.
Moderation, you have to start back with people 2 weeks ahead of time and train them how to ask questions. Right. You have to train them to bird dog. You know what I'm saying? We have mentally ill people that we pay to do shit. Make no mistake. Over the last 20 years, I've paid off a few homeless guys to do some crazy stuff, and I've also taken them for dinner, and I've also made sure they had a hotel and a shower, and I've put them in a program. Like, I've done that, but
as you can see, they recruit people off the street as well. Like, they have, they'll get people wherever they can, man. That they'll do that. But this just goes to show you that the people who do get involved, you got to understand what you're getting yourself into. There are folks who have probably been traumatized by this so badly that they are to the point where they just do not give a shit. We cannot deny that the key events that happened several times, like these mass shootouts, hadn't happened. The fact that they'll go out, blast the folks who they perceive who is who's responsible for their targeting, and that's usually the ones that they use as a scapegoat, right? They use those people as scapegoats to further events. I think his name was it was something Ventura, something like that, or whatever. I can't recall his name, but he did cover some content related to target individuals before. And he knows like exactly how intrusive this technology is. He's well aware of it. He doesn't even want anything to do with a damn phone at all, dude. One of the things he said that really, really stood out was that, well, there were several things that a lot of people say, like no media outlet wants to cover something that is dangerously close to the truth. I don't know whether it's fear of backlash or fear that, that could come back at them. Um, but it's really, really difficult to assert this whole situation because I remember a while back, Fox News covered something about folks using directed energy weapons, and we all, me and an old friend of mine, ended up seeing that on the news, right? But after that one moment that it was shown, you don't see it anymore. It's not broadcasted anymore. Granted, people recorded it and downloaded it, but to preserve the footage. But there are certain things that are happening in live television that immediately gets taken off if you miss it. I suspect there are folks keeping their eyes peeled for these events to occur. And to give you a prime example, I uploaded a video a while back, and it was showing how the DARPA wave weapons were affecting people in the news. How they were programming folks right there who were basically just giving you information. But one of the key things that stood out was this. It's the fact that you will have a horrific event going on in one area, right? You'll have a horrific event going on in one area covered by the news. And every news platform out of almost every state will cover that subject, undermining the horrific events that are going on in their own area, right? So they're undermining all, you got horrific events happening in every state, almost every month of the year. But they will solo cover on a single subject from a state that's not their own. My belief is this is their way of covering up whatever dirty, nefarious actions are taking place within their own state. So usually whenever they do this and it's involving gun control, right? It's usually whenever it's a mass shooting, they'll cover it. And it's always the same thing. It's calling for more gun control. It's calling for more surveillance. And in the end, it seems to be way too beneficial, doesn't it? To them, to the ones who really want control. It seems way too beneficial. They know they can't just roll up through the states with all that totalitarianistic stuff. They can't just do that. There are people who are armed and ready to take these assholes on if it ever comes down to that. They know this. They know that a direct approach like that will not work. This is why they want they want to program people at a slow pace. This is why this is why you probably see folks, kids with freaking cell phones nowadays, yet they don't know what the heck they're doing with those things. That comfortability is all a part of the social engineering. Most of those parents don't even understand how intrusive that technology is. The fact that someone can easily just, hack right into that device and be able to look right through your cam. They don't know that unless you inform them. But if someone's trying to call you crazy from just exposing the truth, it's not that person doesn't know. It just means that they're just being dismissive of that truth, probably because they themselves are either under surveillance or they just choose not, they just choose to not want to believe it.
The reality is a lot of, especially in our union guys, not for union guys, they'll do whatever you want. They're rock and roll. When I need to get something done in Arkansas, the first guy I call is the head of the AFL-CIO down there, because he will say, what do you need? And I will say, I need a guy who will do this and this, and they find that guy. And that guy will be like, yeah, hell, let's do it.
Bird dogging. Bird dogging. It's a word we had not heard until we got into this investigation. But when we checked the WikiLeaks Clinton emails, we found references to the term in emails to and from the campaign. This is a chain where Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook suggests it might be a tactic to employ to shore up support with Hispanic voters. After our report, they may also need some help with the people in Iowa and Wisconsin.
So I have to be really honest. Iowa is a difficult case because it's a 50-50 state, and honestly, half the state is racist as fuck. I And I came home last night and really just, I was upset because that's not the way I was raised, and that's not the Iowa that I grew up in. But you kind of have to accept that that's the way it is. Now,
It's not who you are, but that's what the state is.
Wisconsin is just as bad.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
Corruption. As you can see, it's alive and well in our country, and you're paying for it. As we continue to release more videos, you must hold the mainstream media to account to further investigate what we've uncovered. America, our war is here. We must decide if we're going to save this country or lose it. To quote Abraham Lincoln, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter or lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves.
So that's part one. Don't worry, we got 2 other parts to cover as well, and then after that, that'll probably be the end of the live stream. So as you can take from that video, it's made perfectly clear that there are factions of people out there in certain positions who are hiring and recruiting people off the street. They do have connections to do that. They're getting people off the street, off the local neighborhoods. They do have a lineup of different people. Different, age does not matter, gender does not matter. It doesn't matter. These people are trained to perpetrate. They're trained to be crisis actors. They trained to play false witness. All these things in these key areas. It's the bait and switch. All you name it. All of it's there. I just wanted to make that part clear that there are people out there who do instinctively do this. And why is that so important? The reason why that's so important is because whenever we showcase evidence, folks are usually asking the questions, why would anybody have the interest to do this? First off, it could be to silence the truth. It could be to prevent someone who they view as, in most cases for targeted individuals, they view us as an investment, for one, because if they're doing weapons testing on us, if they're doing all kinds of stuff that is violating our rights, that they're going, they don't want to get sued. They don't want to get their asses sued. So they're going to do whatever they can in their power to prevent, us from really getting that far. So we got to be very careful with how we handle this, because ultimately it all depends on how we deal with this as an individual. I mean, yeah, TIs could gather up and try to deal with this, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to most likely send an agent provocateur in the midst of that. And you got to be able to discern the situation properly to be able to tell who's who and not be fooled. If it's someone who really is there to help you out, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to want you to be around the people who are legit. They're going to want you to be around a perpetrator who's most likely going to stab you in the back. All right, so that was number 1. Let's go to number 2. This one I probably uploaded already, but let's watch it anyway. So this one says rigging election video 2, mass voter fraud. Just for the record, I haven't watched this video completely yet at all. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. But if anything stands out, I will give my open opinion on it and then go from there.
You could fuck your mother in front of the governor.
Oh, God.
And not go to church.
I assume you don't go off and tell these conversations.
No.
But this is
No, absolutely. So, no.
However, other people can make things happen that you don't need to know about. We talk about lots of things that we don't talk about. You know what? You've been busting people in, you fucking asshole, for 50 years, and we're not going to stop now.
Oh, God. I thought he said 15, but he said 50. He said 50 years. Damn.
This is part 2 of our undercover investigation into the dark.
You know what? If he said 50 years, these types of secret operations, this covert tactic and training that they got going on, the fact that they're boasting about it, this could have gone back all the way to to the time of MK Ultra. This very well could have been gone that far back.
dealings of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Part one blew up on social media, with many Americans wondering why the mainstream media wasn't covering the story. In fact, Project Veritas Action had television exclusives lined up around the country. Those television stations spiked the story at the last minute. Our sources tell us the reason they did so was fear of retaliation and retribution from a future Hillary Clinton administration. Truth is dangerous, especially when it challenges those in power. In this video, Democratic operatives tell us how to successfully commit voter fraud on a massive scale.
And you see, that's the problem. There are people out there who are in positions of power who want to do good, but it's the fear of that retaliation. You know, these people do have families. This is, you know, just as well as we ourselves have families. You know, they got to think that, you know, about how their actions could basically, you know, bring consequences to their own families. So then, you know, it becomes very problematic. You know, it's not easy to always do the right thing. However, doing the right thing does show that we do true, you know, hold our values as, you know, as a decent human beings quite dearly. Don't ever think that there ain't nobody out there who don't want to do good, because there are always going to be those people out there. But from what I understand, due to certain individuals, they want to keep you bombarded and isolated for a reason, because they keep you bombarded around those who are going to basically be negative around you all the time. I'm telling you right now, they're full of shit. They're full of shit, and there are people out there who would disagree with them.
Oh yeah, you won. You're rock and roll. So I'm basically deputy rapid response director for the DNC for all things Trump on the ground. Nobody's really supposed to know about me.
No, I'm saying we have mentally ill people. We pay to do shit. Make no mistake. It's getting Caesar Vargas.
I got a priest to cry on camera once.
You know, that's another thing that stands out. They hire actual mentally ill people. And then these people who are actually mentally ill use these perpetrating tactics against people who are not mentally ill, only to try to basically label that non-mentally ill person as someone who's mentally ill. That is very, man, dude, man.
You know, Brad and Bob and Lux and myself are all part of the old school method where it doesn't matter what the freaking legal and ethics people say. We need to win this motherfucker.
So Bob is really the president, and I talked to him this afternoon, and they're all in. If we can get 25 grand, they're all in.
Our investigators wanted to find out what it would take to get the highest favorable turnout. Democratic politico Scott Vogel was our target, and he was more than willing to lead us through the process of how to rig an election.
We did for them when we were in charge. What we did the exact same thing. Only we manipulated the vote with money and access, not with laws. It's a very easy thing for Republicans to say, well, let's bust people in. Well, you know what? You've been busting people in, you fucking asshole, for 50 years, and we're not going to stop now. We're going to find a different way to do it. So, I mean, I grew up with that idea.
So hear what he said at the end there. He grew up with that idea, right? He was, meaning it's almost as if like he was taught that from a young age. So the people who are hiring these, you know, these provocateurs, these agitators, these crisis actors, that's how they are. They view us folks who are not doing anything wrong as assholes. And it's like, dude, we didn't do jack shit to you, but you know, that's the kind of mentality they got. It's fucked up, ain't it? You didn't do a damn thing to those people, and yet they want to play the blame. But you see, this is where it gets down to. This is where it's coming towards more of a since it consists of gaslighting. This is where your narcissistic characteristic starts to come in place. People who want all the who want the attention, but at the same time, they despise those who can just live their lives without wanting that extra bit of anything. Who can live their lives in peace with just being themselves. Us, us as a people, just going about living our daily lives and holding true to our morals, right? You know the old saying how one bad apple spoils the bunch? Well, the same thing can work in reverse. Let's say a very ripe apple can actually ripen the bunch. When there's a person who seeks to do good, and even though they're surrounded by those who just don't give a shit, that person lays to be inspiration for those to do right instead of doing wrong. Because it's like, when they see a person like that, it's like looking in the mirror, It's just like looking in the mirror, because then they can see themselves for how much they've allowed themselves to actually. It really shows the amount of disrespect that they have for themselves to act the way that they do. And most folks don't like that. That's where a lot of this hatred's coming from, is that it's self-hatred, but they deflect that hatred onto us because we act as a mirror to basically reflect the bad behavior of which they enact upon. And they see that through our good nature.
They used to bus people out to Iowa. If we needed people out there, bus people out there. When we met Scott Vogel, he worked for People for the American Way, an organization funded in large part by George Soros. He now works for Americans United for Change. It's a nonprofit that claims to, quote, move America in a new, better direction, unquote. With guys like Vogel working for them, we wonder what direction that might be. When I do this, I think you're an investigator first. Yeah, work backwards. Yes. Yeah, I used to do the investigation. Yeah. Different. Nothing. I think backwards from how they were prosecuted, if they could, and then try to build out the message. The plan that was discussed was how to bring people from one state into another state to vote illegally.
Oh, hey, Matrix, how's it going? In case you're wondering, I've already mentioned this in the beginning, but I'll mention it again for anybody else new who's joining. The first segment of this live stream that I had going was to prove that there are, to showcase this video that I'm playing now, which you guys should be able to find in the previous video uploaded. You just get a link to this guy's channel in the description. But what I was trying to prove is that there are folks out there in different positions within different, programs or, forms of government or whatever, who are actually hiring at, your agitators, your crisis actors, stuff like that. And this video is actually showcasing all that corruption that exists within it. However, the election part is just one piece of the pie, right? Of one major event that has happened. The fact that they have some of these people have 50 years experience in doing these types of actions, that the program itself has that much time, shows that they would have had to have gotten the experience from somewhere. That's where the key element comes into play, that there is connections to what targeted individuals are experiencing when it comes to these perpetrators.
Illegally. They could invalidate. Well, okay, let's just say in theory, if a major investigation came up of major vote fraud that way, how would they prove it and who would they charge? Are they going to charge each individual? Are they going to charge each individual? Are they going to go after the facilitators for conspiracy, which they can prove? And one thing if all these people drive up in their personal cars, there's a bus involved. That changes the dynamic. So it's the legality. Well,
Because you can prove conspiracy if there's a bus. Yeah. If there are cars, it's much harder to prove.
And there's enough money.
If there's enough money, then you have to drive their POV.
Absolutely.
Or you have to drive running.
Yeah, with
A POV is the abbreviation for personally owned vehicle, in case you guys are wondering about that.
no with Wisconsin license plates. Absolutely.
Well, you can't have them with Wisconsin license plates because rentals here, most of them don't have Wisconsin license plates. But there's a thing called used car auction.
So if you guys have ever noticed like the dealership tags through some of my recordings, I started calling some of that out because there were don't get me wrong, there's a lot of dealerships out where I'm at, but I started calling it out because it was going on way too repetitive. And how I did it was I mapped out the area of where I was at, right? As well as the whole entire town consistently, and I memorized it based on, where my position was. So from that, basically I'm calling out, there seems to be an unusual amount of dealership tags passing by, right? Way too many for it to be normal. The key element here is what stands out from the social norm. Who is breaking the dynamic of the social norm? Someone who's not trying to keep tabs on you, who's just doing their own thing, minding their own business. Their behavior will not be in conjunction with your own, right? It wouldn't be. So who's around trying to basically directly put something in your perception, and it seems to be repetitively happening with different people, but it's the same thing, right? So even though that's still happening, who is around the area while that's still going on? Usually there is a handler involved who is mostly keeping tabs on the scenario, what's going on. The person who's doing the repetitive act is the distraction, while this actual stalker is in the area somewhere still keeping eyes on whoever is the designated target, right? That's usually how that plays out. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to do really well in keeping themselves hidden. But there are ways to actually find out who these people are. And I am very, very grateful for what Miss SHP did, because the tactics she showed was that you can map out their entire surveillance network, right? So let's say you were looking to ditch these assholes. First off, a large vehicle like a car or a truck isn't going to do you any good because that's too large of a vehicle. It's too easy to spot and very less likely to hide. If you know where their surveillance network is, it becomes a lot easier to dodge that surveillance network. Almost every intersection where you're going to have traffic light, traffic stoplights and stuff like that, right? There's going to be cameras involved there. If they use a drone, you can easily take a cheap laser and you can easily point that at that drone. That drone's going to be thinking that you're attempting to shoot it down, but you can showcase that, it's moving around, so you can record that if you want. The other thing is they're going to have most likely agents on the ground. This is why I had planned on trying to get a hold of a fast moving vehicle, nothing too large, but something that's compact enough for me to travel lightly and be able to basically ditch the bastards when necessary. I would pay to see these assholes freak out when a targeted individual ditches their asses. I would pay to see that. I honestly would, because I've temporarily ditched them before, and I had a front row seat to see how they were freaking out. And I was stashed away in the bushes somewhere. This happened in Louisiana, and this couldn't have been no more than 10 minutes of me getting off of work, right? So I stashed myself in the bushes somewhere at the last second. I had all my devices on airplane mode. Some of them were turned off. I even had them in a what do they call that? An RFID bag or something like that, right? I was using that. And what had happened was they knew the vicinity of where I was at, but they didn't know my precise location. And it was dark out. So I was wearing dark based clothing, so it wasn't easy to spot me. So what they did was they had folks. Okay, so there's a railroad track, right? There's a group of trees going alongside that railroad track on one side. There were cars. I shit you not. They had the lights on, so it was easy to tell. There were cars constantly circling around that area like crazy. You know, I couldn't help but see that. I'm like, damn, these bastards are really combing the area, trying to find out where I was. No joke. They were really combing the area. So I waited about a good 15 minutes, and it was just the constant thing of them traversing around and around and around and around. Even I suspect the drones that they use probably do have both night vision and heat vision technology capabilities. I do suspect that. I don't know. This is a bit far fetched. I don't know, and I know I'm getting off a topic, but I don't know if like you know, say you could have a sheet covered with mud, if that'll work against heat vision. And as far as night vision, I think camouflage would still work against night vision, honestly. Um, But if you really would seek to get away from them, you would have to find out a way to deal with that drone. You would have to most likely abandon any device you currently have, because unless, I would say, invest in a device that does not have the built-in technology that's coming from these manufacturers, because the way that technology is basically, you know, the operational system is made, it's already got back doors for them to get into immediately to manipulate your manipulate your property. You know, if they invest in, you know, if some of these companies are investing into this types of the way this technology is going, you best believe they're going to leave those back doors open for these perpetrators to get in there. Let's see, Mylar blanket against thermals. Oh, that's, yeah, okay, that's good to know. Mylar, yeah, that's definitely good to know. Thank you. Um, but if you ever do get something that's intentionally made to be more secure, do not have it mailed. That's the biggest thing I can say. If you buy a vehicle, do not have it mailed in. If you buy a new device, you know, anything like that, do not have it mailed in, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to get into that and do something that gives them somewhat of an access into that device. Um, I would say, get a paper map as well, one of those large ones. And what you can do is you can key map the surrounding areas of what's within the towns. And then you can basically make markers so you know what's within that area off that paper map. So you don't have to rely on a device to do that, to find out, you know, what you're looking for. Let's say, you know, you have a color palette, right? And these key locations are mapped onto the color palette. So let's say, you know, if there's a gas station nearby, that'll be blue. If there's a grocery store, that will be purple. If there's a motel, that'll be orange. You can have marks just like that. Um, I'm gonna be very harsh about this, very blunt. You must not if you do basically get away from them, you know, you cannot contact family after that. You know, I hate to be that guy to say it, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to be you know, watching your, you know, your closest family members to see if you're tempted to call one of them. And when I say that they are really looking for you, if you ditch these bastards, I'm not kidding. When I stepped out that bush, this guy who was one of the guys who was constantly circling around the area, he slammed on his brakes and made a right hard turn. I'm not joking. Like they are desperate, dude. They are really desperate. No joke. But enough of the rant. Let's continue the video.
Use car off. The title belongs to some unknown company. Their company car.
And you know, these are multiple employers. These are not all one employer.
Yeah. Use shell companies. Yeah. The cars come from one company, the paychecks come from another. There's no bus involved, so you can't prove that it's on mine.
There you go.
So it doesn't tip people off.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
See, okay, yeah. So now I'm starting to see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when I do this, I think you're an investigator first.
Good. Yeah, work backwards. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I just remembered, and this is going to be really good for you guys. So the nanoparticles that get distributed to the geoengineering as well as to the domestic quail, right? A lot of people pointed out that this stuff is heavily dependent upon the ingredient known as sugar. The other second ingredient that we would be similar to this is high fructose corn syrup. So what I was wondering, since sugar is actually a key ingredient to what this stuff is using, because this is similar to the crown virus, right? If this is what it's using as a key element to highly highly speed up its its self-replication, then what if you had a rife frequency that actually detoxes sugar? And so I found it. I found the right frequency that detoxes, and here's the thing, it's something that's imitating the symptoms of diabetes, right? How do you get diabetes? By consuming large amounts of sugar, right? So I found the right frequency that actually deals with diabetes directly, but I will warn you, the video I found can cause, if you don't be too alarmed, but just at least so you know, it can cause lower levels of blood sugar, just so you are aware. But when I used this frequency, I was able to sleep. I was actually able to get some relief. I was able to breathe again normally, all that stuff. Whenever these attacks start to issue out, there's always a change in the way that you breathe or whatever. There's always a change there. And usually ringing in the ears from time to time, stuff like that, certain symptoms. So I'm like, something, if they're going to do this, I can use these symptoms as a key element in order for me to find out more and more ways to fight against it. And that's what I've been doing since the past couple months so far. I've been looking for key ways to deal with it. Unfortunately, shielding is only going to do so much. And you just be warned, the more you shield and the more you're free from, they're connecting to you like that, it's going to be tremendously painful when they do actually are able to connect to you again. At least from experience, I've heard this from other people. But the biggest problem of all is the fact that we're constantly under these waves and blankets and blankets and blankets of the geoengineering. That's the biggest problem right there. I mean, yeah, we got the anti-nano bucket to drain it out, but we're constantly getting reinfected with this stuff on the daily. Everything we touched is saturated with the stuff from every different parts of the ground that we walk on, whether it's the concrete, the grass, it doesn't matter. All of that stuff is saturated. Even if you have a garden, if you do not have a greenhouse, that food is already infected with the stuff, man. And it's just not doing anybody any justice at all. If you try to fight and push for, and educate the masses about what that stuff really is, because let's face the facts, the fact that anybody, that they would do that is just a major FU to the people they're recruiting, because those people are still breathing that stuff in. Well, you think they're going to tip them off about that? I don't think so. There's a whole purpose as to why that stuff exists out there, and it's for control.
I used to do the investigations. Yeah. Different method. I think backwards from how they would prosecute if they could, and then try to build out the method to avoid that. So you're saying shell companies, you're saying the car, if the car has Wisconsin license, and is owned by a third entity, then it's much harder to prove that these people drove in from out of state. There's no costs involved.
Okay, I'm gonna read this out to you guys because there's a lot of noise in the background. So, from what Scott Fobel is saying, if now this is dealing with like the dealership cars, right? So if the car has a this is circulated in Wisconsin, but you can easily take the same example to almost any different state. So if the car has Wisconsin license plate and it's owned by a third entity, then it's much harder to prove that these people drove in front out of the state. There's no bus involved, so you can't prove conspiracy. Usually, some of you have probably noticed that some of the perpetrators are people from another state that you once lived in. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but I actually have. I kid you not. I have seen this happen a few times. One key element I will warn you guys of too: be wary of people who do show up from your past. Depending on how far back that goes, that at least gives you some idea to the extent of how long the surveillance was going on. For instance, I lived in Mississippi several years ago, and I was a teenager at the time. And my mother was dating this guy who had his own lawnmower business, right? So there were a lot of there was some weird things going on. I think the most horrific event that I had in my life was the fact that she had a seizure while she was driving the car, right? This happened right after she picked me up from school. She had a literal seizure as she picked me up from school, but she was fighting it the entire time. She was literally fighting it. She drove us all the way from the school all the way to the house while having that seizure. I know because she always had this very obnoxious and unusual smirk and smile on her face whenever she has these seizurous episodes, right? I was shocked that she was even able to do that, to be honest. I was immediately shocked. But I suspect she knew how dangerous it was. I suspect that they may have been using some sort of psychotronic weapons to get her to have that to happen, and they were trying to get her into an accident. The reason why I say this is because several years later, now I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, right? And I'm riding the public bus. I kid you not. That same dude she was dating way back when, I fucking saw him on that bus. I kid you not. He got a little bit more heavy set than he was before, but I swear that had to have been him, because this wasn't the first time that they used a tactic like that. I think they were just under the impression that I probably just didn't recognize him, but I swear that had to have been the same guy. Or, it looked way too much like him. I swear I was not mistaken. That had to be him. They've also done this several times with a person who I previously worked with in the past. They had that happen as well. And what was off about this is that guy, I know for a fact that guy had his own car. So that stood out too as odd. It wasn't a new car, but it was a used car. So it had a little wear and tear there. So that also stood out. And it wasn't just him either. There was another person who they did this with as well. So just be wary of that. They will have folks from your past appear out of nowhere. I would say, here's the thing. You can be suspicious of people, but you don't have to act out that suspicions. You don't have to tip them off that you're suspicious of them. You can play normal or whatever, but just be cautious and still be cautious of them without tipping them off. It's just that simple. Let them, if they have ill intent, only just be aware of this, of the circumstances, and don't put them in a position that could actually cause harm upon yourself or your family. Just, as long as you understand that, then you're golden from there.
And they would have to be looking for them in the first place.
Oh, a bus is something that you're not looking for, or that you are looking for.
Yeah.
Our journalists helped brainstorm with Fogel on how to come up with addresses for their phony voters.
Now, if we just have the canvassers logging the homes, they don't even have to know why they're doing it.
Put a mark on it
And say, this address, we have moved, but moved could mean someone else
and
moved
then
in.
you take that data and you flip it out and you give it to people and you have people tell about it.
So Yeah, and you know, it sort of depends upon how how much the canvassers don't have to know why they just need to be told to do. Yeah. In fact, you don't want them to. Right.
The question is whether when you get caught by a reporter, does that matter because they're turning an investigation or not? In this case, in this state.
There's one other thing I need to let you guys know. Even if you don't have a phone on you or whatever, if you have like a SIM card, that can also be tracked. Any type of hell, even a debit card can be tracked. Let's say you're ditching them, and one of the key things you can use is cash, but thanks to social engineering, they teach people to be suspicious of folks who use cash because if you're using a debit card, it can be tracked. If you're using PR codes, tracked. If you're basically scanning anything with the camera on and you're making purchases through the phone, it can be tracked. This is why they want folks to be more under that type of way of purchasing stuff, more of a digitalized way of doing things than just purchasing stuff off with cash. In most circumstances, camouflage actually works. A change of appearance, it works. I've done this numerous amounts of times, and even if they have people out on the field, there are times where they will not be able to recognize you, so you're able to slip past their area of operation. The problem is, this is why they're so desperate to find out what you're buying, what categories of the stuff that you're buying, what does it look like, what color it is it pants, is it shorts, is it shoes, is it a hat, whatever. They're highly intrusive like that for a reason, so that they know, if you are wearing certain things, they know what to keep an eye out for, right? I like the scene from The Dark Knight of Batman. What he did, he knew folks, he's a multi-billion-dollar man, right? So he knew folks would be looking for a guy who was basically whose clothing would be somewhere around in such a high retail fashion, right? So what he did was he went over to the homeless guy and said, hey buddy, I'll actually give you this high tailored jacket. I'll give you to this for free in exchange for yours. He made that exchange to basically blend into the crowd and not stand out. So when folks was looking for him, they couldn't find him. This is probably one of the other reasons why I liked Bruce Wayne as much as I did, because I actually grew up with DC, and some other folks grow up with Marvel, but I grew up with DC. And Batman, my mother knew Batman was like one of my favorite superheroes back then. Man, I'm reminiscing too much. Let's just continue before I get too far off the subject.
Because they don't have any power to do anything. Right. So this is sort of maybe not stuff for the general, but stuff that maybe hold off until.
No, I think you should do it for the general.
Okay.
So what you do is you implement the plan on a much bigger scale. You implement a massive change in state legislatures and in Congress. So you aim higher for your goals, and then you implement it across every Republican policy.
Hold up. There's one other thing I needed to mention. The other problem, if you're trying to get away from the other problem you will have to deal with, is certain vehicles. I don't know if you all have noticed this, but if you go onto the Google Maps, you can actually notice that they have Google has certain vehicles that actually traverse through the area, and each time they're doing this, they always are snapping photos of a localized area. So if you go under a specific option under Google Maps, what you'll notice is you can actually scroll throughout the street and see those photographs of a different area. Another key element I've noticed, I've used the tactics SHP was using, right, on identifying different areas of where the false towers are at on certain people's properties. And I realized that some of these houses are blurred out. You can't even see them. You know, if you go through Google Maps and try to search it up from that. I don't know why, but I think it seems slightly too convenient that that is like that, in my opinion. Maybe some people pay Google off to do that. I honestly don't know. I really don't know. But the question is what are was that done by the current residents that reside in that house, or was it done by previous residents who used to live there but no longer do? That's that's usually the issue with that, but I'm not really sure exactly what it could be.
Starting on the grassroots, honestly, the rifest environment to do it in. Within striking distance. Michigan, the least restrictive donation caps and campaign finance laws and investigative arms. Like, they have weakened it so bad in these 3 states. You can fuck your mother in front of the government and not go to church. If you had enough money to go like this.
Fogle then told our journalist that he knew the guy that makes stuff like this happen.
So Bob Kramer comes up with a lot of these ideas. I work with Bob Kramer one-to-one all the time. I'm the White House democracy. I will probably end up being a partner there at some point. Because our philosophy is the same.
Bob Kramer founded Democracy Partners in 2011. He is the husband of Jan Schakowsky, a Democratic congresswoman from Chicago, and in 2005 he pled guilty on tax violations and bank fraud. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 months in prison and 11 months of house arrest.
One of the things that Steve was talking to Scott about, passed on to me, and I think it's one of the reasons why I got in touch with you. He envisioned, what do you need to be able to vote in some of these new voters? What do you really need? Okay, what makes you a citizen? And if you look at that checklist, it's an ID card of any kind that shows you who you are, right? And a pay stub that shows you're getting paid at a local address someplace.
To get registered.
Yeah, to get registered.
Yeah.
So you go in and register. If you have those 2 things, you're registered to vote. So if you, let's say I had a business inside of, say, Illinois or Michigan, and I hired people and I had addresses for them, I could write them checks for those. I could use them as day laborers or whatever and use them and find my way around the voter registration laws for Hispanics. That's one thing. I'm actually, that idea, when he gave it to me, I was like, that sounds like something we could register huge numbers of people that way. But that kind of thing kind of stuck in my craw when he mentioned it to me.
All right, let me, on that front, right now, let me see if I can chat with the people who are most involved in Hispanic voter registration.
Okay.
And see what their thoughts are. I mean, there are a couple of different organizations that's your big trick.
Okay, yeah, if you know folks that you can put me in touch with, like, what if I,
We'll help you do this. I mean, this is very important, this stuff. Turnout is huge.
Because Bob Kramer is diabolical. Love him. Yeah. I've learned so much from that man over the last 20 years, I can't even tell you. And he calls me to be his firefighter a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because there are people who in our movement who will not do what it takes to get shit done. And I am not that person. I'm the one they send when everything is gone to shit. So he spends a lot of time on the phone with my boss, actually, like asking for me to go places that I don't go.
We had our donor set up a second meeting with Bob Kramer to see how he could help put this voter fraud plan into motion.
This is re-enfranchising the voters. That's how I look at it. Okay? If I could, through my company, employ these people for a day, okay, or for a week, or for a month, okay, and I could find work for them, useful work for them, and issue corporate IDs for that.
Here's my theory. You run this by our ordinance.
Okay.
My theory is that someone would decide that this was a victim trust.
Creamer hesitated to help our donor pull off the voter fraud scheme that Fogle created.
Bob came back to me and asked me, what is he talking about? And I told him what we were talking about.
But you did.
And he said, well, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole now. I go, nor should you.
Good advice.
Nor should you. He goes, good. I'm glad we're on the same page there. I said, however, other people can make things happen that you don't need to know about.
So that's where I think this goes.
Yeah, but you not understand. He's still going to have to know about it.
Mr. Creamer?
Yes.
Well, I mean, is that okay as long as it's outside of? Okay. Now,
we talk about lots of things that we don't talk about.
Fogle told us about a guy in New York that works with Creamer a lot. We wondered if he was the guy who could pull off the voter fraud scheme.
This guy named Cesar Vargas. Is his name. So Bob is really good friends with him, and talked to him this afternoon.
Vargas is an interesting character. He is the co-founder of the Dream Action Coalition, a New York lawyer and a dreamer himself. Born in Mexico, Vargas is an undocumented alien.
Now, this is another key of corruption here, because it's, let's say a target individual was to try to seek justice through the legal system. Well, 9 times out of 10, they're going to try to get you a lawyer who probably is already shilling out for them if you ever have an appointed lawyer, quote unquote. And that person is most likely going to be against you off the bat, most likely. There are going to be folks who are not aware, who are lawyers. And 9 times out of 10, usually this program approaches them through covert means. For instance, whenever it comes to whatever they have planned out, they're not, folks aren't just going to start dishing out their plans right in front of you. They're not going to do that. They're going to have discussions on whatever that is outside of your presence, basically. So they would probably have someone who is an extension of the third party to contact that person and basically, come up with any excuse, whether it's a bribe, a payoff, anything like that, to get them to go against you or whatever. Some folks could basically, be their own lawyers, but in this case, you got to really know the ins and outs of everything. And 9 times out of 10, if you don't, then your chances of being railroaded are much more substantial than it would be with a lawyer. Unfortunately, there are probably times where the lawyer themselves get targeted as a result of trying to defend a target individual. I'm not 100% sure how far that goes. I think it just depends upon, the different scenarios and how far it's going.
Was this idea and stopping the seem possible, depending on the possible team member, framing what is possible is, essentially getting a bunch of people, on a bus or whatever, taking them around the country. They are busy with the vote, so they can vote. At the same time, they're also getting work permits under a different name. And we can get half of it.
Yeah, I was to say, can we make something, especially if it's midterm elections in 2018?
Something what she just said really stood out to me. You remember when they had the whole scenario where a bunch of dead people were actually voting? So when she says that there are people voting on behalf of those who cannot, it makes me wonder if that's what that was during that time of different elections. Because even the one between both Biden and Trump, like that one seems somewhat sketchy on its own.
This is not right?
I know that.
So I think it's not about for us. Let's see who the next president is. If it even makes more sense. the issue will be more credible and much more opportunity for us to jump into this. Right. The Secretary Clinton and the ordinary laws are loosened, and we have much more opportunity for people to vote. And we have an immigration reform. It's not going to be as significant, right?
The bridge, no plan on the one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Count me in.
We don't go off and have this conversation.
No.
But this is.
No, absolutely. As an activist, do we want to do this? Do we want to take a chance on this public?
We have to do a better job of making our people do what they're supposed to do. Not asking them, not expecting them and taking them for granted, but beating the shit out of them and making them like voters. Yeah.
You heard what he just said, right? This is what I hinted at before we got to this point, how they would most likely have some sort of leverage over the people they recruit, or at least some sort of document that basically is legal binding. So if they were to spill the beans on certain things, whistleblow, then it would actually backfire on them in some way, or backfire on their families. It's usually something just like that. There probably are people who have perpetrated against us who do not like what they're doing, who do not want to participate, but these arrogant pricks are forcing them to do it. And when you look at it, people's hands are tied.
America, our series of videos from this investigation will continue up until the election. People ask me, James, what can I do? Here's what you can do. Send this video to every single person you know. Demand the mainstream media play these tapes. Email the journalists. Tweet at the journalists. And remember, the truth is dangerous, especially when it challenges those in power.
Okay, so that was part 2, or video 2, mass voter fraud. So trying to move on to video 3. Oh, wait, video. Okay, yeah, there's only a total of 3 videos, so let's start video 3. This one's 14 minutes long and 14 minutes and 51 seconds long. The title for this one is Rigging Election. Video 3, Kramer confirms Hillary Clinton was personally involved. You all probably have heard some connections about this when it came down to the emails that were going around. Obama, from what they've mentioned, Obama got involved due to certain factors. It got to the point to where, like, if one person was going down, they were going to take someone else down with them. So someone else just instinctively caused someone else to start pulling strings, and basically, stuff got covered up. People were attempting to pay people off. Bribes were dished out. All kinds of stuff. Anything to just silence the truth. They're going to pull any dirty trick that they can.
We just have to be careful about these things and talk about that.
We have to clear this with DNC. With Democrat National Committee, we have to clear which message they're going to be targeting at each event.
In the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. If I got people get ducks on the ground.
Oh, so it's wow.
Don't read that to me. Don't read that to me. This duck is going to get it.
Hold up, I gotta replay that. Oh my god. Hold up.
Message you're going to be targeting at each event.
Okay, it's this guy.
The future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. If I got people get ducks on the ground.
Oh, so it's wow.
Don't read that to me. Don't read that to me. This duck is going to get somewhere.
I've got much on Monday morning. I mean, President John
If the future president of the United States wants ducks on the ground, we will put ducks on the ground.
This is part 3 of our undercover investigation into the dark, backroom dealings of the Hillary Clinton campaign. In this story, will show an illegal dark money conspiracy.
I'm sorry, I don't know whether it's irony or just funny that they're saying ducks and StreamYard's mascot is an actual duck with headphones. Oh man. In case you're wondering, I suspect when they say ducks, they mean agents, like provocateurs. They're not going to just say agents for legal purposes, but you should be able to understand. It's the same thing when they say boots on the ground, how that, reference military groups basically being on the motherland or whatever is what they would call it.
Conspiracy between the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, and the non-for-profit corporation Americans United for Change. And it's all disguised as a duck.
So I'm basically Deputy Rapid Response Director for the DNC for all things Trump on the ground. Nobody's really supposed to know about me.
You know, Brad and Bob and Lux and myself are all part of the old school method where it doesn't matter what the freaking legal and ethics people say. We need to win this motherfucker.
So Bob is really the president, and talked to him this afternoon, and they're all in. If we can get 25 grand, they're all in.
It was earlier this year when people in Donald Duck costumes started showing up at Trump events across the country. It turns out the duck was Hillary's idea.
Why don't we start this initiative on the tax returns?
Right.
So, tomorrow morning in Trump Tower, I hope we can arrange it so it goes down the escalator. We will launch Donald Ducks. A guy in a Donald Duck costume. The sign that says Donald Ducks releasing his tax returns.
Robert Creamer runs Democracy Partners. It's a political consulting company based in Washington, D.C. with deep ties to Hillary Clinton, the Democratic National Committee, and Obama's White House. In fact, White House logs document that Creamer visited the White House 342 times and met directly with Obama 47 times.
In the end, that is adapted to the Donald Ducks debates, Donald Ducks, whatever else he does. But we're going to have Donald Ducks. And the real problem turns out that it's not easy to find Donald Duck costumes for adults. As you might imagine, 5-year-olds, plenty of them. But the other mascots.
We did Donald Ducks in May.
Brad Woodhouse is president of Americans United for Change. After our first video, Woodhouse fired Scott Vogel, his national field director.
We put out a whole blast and a release around the idea that he was, we there's no taxes in that one because these things are not repeatedly. And we see the key here is to have the visual and to have the costume and have the sound. We got so much shit for that blast that reporters thought it was silly and I think there's probably still some shot. Oh, reporters probably still think it's silly. But you know what? We ain't talking reporters. We're talking voters. What was this morning? Was they loved it.
Originally, we were going to do a project. We're going to do Uncle Sam. I want you your tax returns. I agree. It's not done.
So what you can take from this is these are technically pre-staged, pre-planned events that they are basically putting out via street theater. And the media who's covering this, there could be some ties that they know it's bullshit, but at the same time, they're taking that and they're running with it, basically. This is why, you're only going to get only a fraction of the truth, and then the rest is just either conspiracy or it's just misconception. And that's how they bury the truth. Basically bury the truth with a whole bunch of speculation and conspiracy, so it becomes much more difficult to find.
I agree with that. It's much easier to execute. The guy who had done this other Chicken George thing had this other idea, and in the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. But by God, we will give ducks on the ground. And,
So it's wow.
Don't read that thing.
Okay.
And it is a clever, a better idea. Originally, this guy Sklar, who was did Chicken George in 1992, came to Lex and I with the idea of Donald Ducks. And I ran it up the flagpole in New York. And then he came up and he said, we'd rather do, what do you call it, I don't sing. I want you to release your texture. And God bless Sam Citrus, fine for both. But then I get a call, actually, on the plane about to go to London last week. Christina Rollins calls and says, I've got good news and bad news. Good news is the candidate would like to have a mascot following around the duck. Following around the candidate, Trump. But the bad news is she wants it to be Donald Duck. And that's because Sklar is an old Clinton. And he had gone to some buddy of his who's one of her body people, and she had explained the idea to Hillary, and Hillary just loved it. Okay, let me tell you something. I think she has the right instinct. This thing, it's resonating, but that story is not exactly what you want to hear about how presidential decision making happens. So my answer to Christina was, if the future president of the United States wants ducks on the ground, we will put ducks on the ground.
Hillary Clinton and the DNC wanted the Donald Ducks at Trump and Pence events. The direct involvement of the campaign and the Democratic National Committee with Americans United for Change and Donald Ducks smacks of illegal, coordinated campaign expenditures. Federal campaign law experts have told us, quote, the ducks on the ground are likely public communications for purposes of the law. It's political activity opposing Trump, paid for by Americans United for Change funds, but controlled by Clinton and her campaign.
Like I said before, it's not boots on the ground. When they say ducks, it's basically hired agents being put within areas, pretty much.
Well, representatives of Hillary's campaign were on daily conference calls we witnessed with Kramer, AUFC managers and their operatives. They were talking about where to send the ducks and the ducks message. And not just the campaign. Donna Brazil's Democratic National Committee was in on it as well.
So the operation is to insert and get the duck message in there, if we can, or the extremist message, depending on, we have to clear this with DNC. With Democratic National Committee, we have to clear which message they're going to be targeting at each event. But they can insert into multiple events through the end of the election on a continual basis, on a daily basis. They'll basically do a chase all the way across the country. Now, the duck stuff, we got him way for for the aggressive bird dogging, I want to make sure I stay on track. For the aggressive bird dogging, we want to do from the line before the events, where we're plastering the outside with the Trump duck message, and then going into the events, everybody has their phone. We can insert like 20 to 30 people into the events, where they all have their phones set to go off at the exact same time on an alarm with the duck call on the inside of the events all at once from all over the event.
So they'll catch like the incident going down.
So we want the media to notice the duck calls, right? So we have everybody load a ringtone on their phone that at all times go off at the exact same time.
We just ordered 1,000 rubber duckies with a Donald Duck screen on them to hand out to people in the press.
That's a cool idea. That is a cool idea.
We got to order a bunch of guys, a bunch of Donald Duck hats, so we can put people behind them at various events, when they speak. You get the drift. I'm trying to probably set up a mini website.
Right?
It's got to be Donald.
It's gonna look like Donald. Do they license the suits and put
so that's why it's expensive to buy or rent them, because they're licensed.
You're not going to run into a Disney problem, like a copyright issue or
So it's these guys.
Oh my God, that is awesome, right? You're going to get.
I doubt that they will because, we're paying the rich to provide the suits. That's when they get their license fee. We're not using it for commercial use.
And the DNC didn't just help place Donald Duck at protests, they were in charge of it.
Yeah, the whole duck thing, that came about for the reason we moved it from DNC to AUSC was to just do a hopscotch, but the actual idea was hatched way back in May.
So our journalist asked Creamer why there was a problem with the DNC taking credit for the duck.
The duck has to be Americans United for Change entity. This had to do only with some problem between Donna Brazil and EBC, so about Disney, because they were worried about our trademark. That's why.
Oh, okay.
So, because they go to New York about it.
Okay. So it's just like a trademark issue with.
This it. Yeah, we originally launched this duck because Hillary Clinton wants to. In any case, so she really wanted this duck figure out there doing this stuff, so that was fine. So we put all these ducks out there, got a lot of coverage, and duck figure, Trump taxes, and then ABC, say Disney went crazy because they thought our original slogan was Donald Duck's his tax thing, losing his tax returns. They said it was a trademark. It's not. But anyway, Donna Brazil had had a kind of connection with it. She wanted to get sued, So we switched the ownership of the duck to Americans United for Change, which, and now our signs say Trump Ducks releasing his tax returns. And we had any more trouble.
On August the 18th, the Wall Street Journal wrote that Donald Ducks was the creation of the Democratic National Committee. Then on September 8th, the Journal reported that the DNC cut ties with the duck. Quote, the DNC is no longer associated with the duck. Americans United for Change is now managing the duck, a consultant for the liberal activist group told the Wall Street Journal, unquote. But behind the scenes, the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign was still running the show, breaking federal campaign coordination laws.
Kind of divvy up responsibility, so sometimes it'll be like campaign owned, so like sometimes you'll see like that they advise something, or they're taking credit for things, so like we're not taking credit for the stuff anymore, that's like random groups, but it's also something that we're involved in, but. Why aren't you taking credit? Just because there were issues, there were like, it's a whole story I can talk about it.
Intro party politics.
But, okay. No, it wasn't party politics, but we just have to be careful about these things and we can talk about that on certain things, but you guys are interested, so fine.
Creamer and Fogle even expected there to be violence following the duck, and it sounded like they wanted it to happen.
Okay, this is important because keep in mind that they had agents to most likely instigate aggravated scenarios within the limelight of where the media would be at. This is another key element that I mentioned before that's very important because usually when these perpetrators act out, it's usually in a public setting. And they do that to pretty much try to paint a picture for those not involved, for them to see, okay, let's say, when it comes to the repetition, they're doing something that is meant to try to irritate you. Ooh, excuse me. Something that's meant to irritate you, but they do it in public, right? But before that, they've done it several times prior. So the way the picture this is painting for those uninvolved and unaware is you're reacting to something in an aggressive manner that is unprovoked. That's what the deceitful tactic is used for. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to paint the picture, making it seem like you're the you're the aggressor when that person just made a simple mistake. But let's be real, these aren't simple mistakes. These are pre-planned events. These are agent provocateurs who are deliberately being placed ahead of time to use triggers in order to cause these things to happen. You're not looking for them, but they're going far out of their way to look for you.
these ducks and some of these rabbits, right? Sure. Really? Yeah. So are you really you have people with them to protect the duck? Because I'm not gonna say I think this duck is gonna get something somewhere. Oh, sure. Someone's gonna rip his costume off. It's it may happen at the Iowa State Fair this week. Yeah, because Pence is there and the duck is planning to follow him around.
It's about intent.
Not the duck itself.
No.
Okay. Because that's the only
reaction to the duck call and the signs.
Okay.
Because once they pull out these signs, Trump supporters literally start throwing punches at people. I almost got punched on Monday morning. I mean, I was in a duck costume.
Fogle didn't get punched, but last week he got fired. Robert Creamer resigned from Clinton campaign activities. It was after Watergate that Congress passed the campaign coordination law. To prove a violation, 3 prongs are required: payment by someone else other than the candidate for election activity, conduct, a campaign being materially involved in shaping communications by third-party groups, and content, running electoral advocacy close to an election. The payment is complicated, but just the fact that Fogle, a paid employee of Americans United for Change, was the duck at some events constitutes payment by AUFC. Conduct, based on their own admission, the campaign, Creamer, their agent, and AUFC coordinated the duck activities. And finally, content. Donald Duck's is undeniably political content directed against one candidate for the sole purpose of helping another. The connection between Creamer, President Obama, and Hillary Clinton is undeniable, as are the campaign law violations. If it looks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. They broke the law. Last week, Hillary denied her connection to Creamer and AUFC. America, it's time you demand she tell the truth. And stay tuned, because there's more to come.
And that's the end of video 3. So even though the main direction of those videos were around the campaign fraud that was going on during that presidential election phase, which was I think 6 years ago when that video was uploaded, it just goes to show you one thing is made clear. There a lot of this corruption that goes on that captures so much attention has key elements that obviously stand out that could be similar to other things that are going out. Now, even though these are certain programs and stuff, I'm not saying they're solely responsible for this stuff that, this types of behavior. No, there are other factions doing the exact same thing. That's the point. There are other factions who are literally hiring folks up off the street, training them, turning them into agent provocateurs, people to create order out of chaos, hired agitators, paid off people who are paid off to play false witness, you name it. But there are some of these folks who they recruit are sometimes, they'll realize the full lengthness of what they're getting themselves into, and they most likely do try to back out. But due to the significance of how much they know now, they are basically using what we usually would call peer pressure or something like that, right? They'll use stuff like that, like if you are in a position to where you are around your peers, they will use something like that in order to try to bully you into, conforming into that type of behavior. And they'll use all kinds of methods, or if they can't use that, they'll use something off as leverage. Dude, I ended up helping. You guys probably remember way back when I was helping this guy out, and I kid you not, right? We're at a rest stop, and they have 2 perps, a guy and a woman, who basically pulled up to this area. The license plate that they had on the back of their car was the name of my ex-girlfriend, her first name. I kid you not. And I was weirded out when it happened, because I'm like, dude, what the F, right? Like, it's just strange. I don't even have anything to do with that woman anymore. But the point of why they did it was because, number one, peer pressure doesn't work on me. Number two, if they're going to end up using basic threats, then that's evidence. I'm going to make sure I move forward with that, with the appropriate action. So whenever you have something like, when you have behavior like that, that shows obviously something's going down, but they don't want it like that. There have been key events that where some targeted individuals have ended up in high speed chases, not with law enforcement, but with folks who are basically trying to track them and keep them under the surveillance with this program. This has happened. And whenever the police has gotten involved, they don't even want to talk about, most of the time they don't even want to move forward with that. They don't even want to file a report on that chase, on that high speed chase. They don't want that. They just want to basically highlight anything that they can use against you and leave it at that. That's the basis of where it stands at. That'll be most likely the forefront of where the conversation goes from. Now, one of the key elements is that, like if they're going to do something like that, to desperately try to keep you underneath the surveillance, you're going to have to come up with countermeasures that will basically deter them from even making that choice. This could, depending on what those choices are, it could get dangerous. I'm just going to say it, but I'm not going to go any farther with that. There are various different options out there that the person has, but here's the thing. One of the key elements that they definitely try to do is to discredit you as much as possible, because if they can deem you as mentally ill, you can't own a gun. If they can get you to be classified under that legally, you cannot own a firearm. And that's one of the dirty tricks that they're trying to use against a lot of folks. Yeah, they want, even though if, like, say, like you file for Social Security, right, under some sort of under some sort of thing or whatever, you're technically given up certain rights that you have, such as the rights to carry a firearm. I'm not advocating violence, but I do advocate the right to protect yourself. People do have a right to do that. You got to be prepared for that. So I'm gonna see if there are any other videos on this channel that might be definitely worth checking out. Let's see anything else that might be looks like most of this is just centered around politics. And that might actually be it. I'm not too sure, but that might actually be it. Hmm. I never really thought much of Bernie Sanders when it came to the elections and stuff like that, but judging from the looks of this, apparently there were some scandals going on his side as well. You're gonna have corruption with politics no matter how you look at it, though. That's just a given. Oh, this one might be interesting. This video says stalker harasses James O'Keefe by phone. Let's check this out.
Hey everyone, James O'Keefe here. I'm traveling, but I'm getting these calls on my phone the last few weeks. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls. First from this stalker person who keeps calling me, and now from, I guess, a robot that keeps calling my phone every 5-10 seconds. I take the call, and there appears to be no one on the other line. And then after a few seconds, they actually hang up. You'll see in a few seconds, about 14 seconds. Person is on the other line. They keep calling my phone. Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Can you please stop calling my phone? You've called my phone hundreds of times. Why do you keep calling? And the person hangs up the phone. and they'll call back momentarily. As you see, they keep calling back. It appears to be a robot or a bot of some type, or even a stalker. And they've literally, when I hit the end button, as I just did, in a few seconds, they'll call my phone right back. It's one of the most bizarre things that I've ever seen. Yep, there it is. They keep calling, so I'm unable to make outgoing calls. Let's see if anyone answers the phone. Hello, is anyone there?
This is gonna seem very well out there. You know that you can actually track a person's location just with the phone number. They don't do crap. They don't do crap like this to me because I had one of them back when I was living in Louisiana. One of them did try a prank call before, and I tracked the phone number. I not only got the address, I not only got the first and last name, but I knew exactly which city they were in, and it was in Gonzales. Now, that does have its benefits, but at the same time, that has its problematic parts too, because not only are people able to, not only, even if they prank call you, right? Even if they prank call you and you can find out where they're at, just from a phone number alone, they can find out where you're at, where you live at, just by that alone, just by, searching that up. So that's most folks don't realize, a phone number, especially a cell phone number, isn't really, it's really a key element for intrusion for real. Like it really is. It just gives away a lot. And it's very worrisome too. So, having a phone has its benefits, but it also has its problems too. It comes with its share of problems.
There? Hello? Hello? Okay, then they hang up the phone. So this person, she called herself Bella. I don't know if it's a stalker or maybe it's someone sent from Bob Creamer's office or Ryan Clayton. These people have done these antics before. They answer the phone again. Hello, this is James. And then the person just sort of, he's on the other line listening, apparently trying to get a rise out of me. Now they know that I'm filming, so hello, and then they hang up the phone. And this is, I want to show you something. Literally, nonstop, all day, they keep calling my cell phone. I hit the reject button. And if you just look at this, just constant calls all day long, every 5 seconds. This is how these people work. They're trying to stop me from doing things. Whereas we expose reality, they continue to harass. I answer the phone again. Hello, this is Bella. This is James. Hello.
Yeah.
Why have you called me hundreds of times in the last few hours? Why?
What difference does it make?
What difference does it make? You got to stop harassing me. I do not want your phone calls. And I want to ask you, are you sent from Bob Creamer? Okay.
They hang up the phone.
I'm going to call her again. Oh, here she is. Let me ask you something. Is Bob Creamer or Ryan Clayton working with you to do this? Hello? Is Bob Creamer or Ryan Clayton working with you to do this?
Working with me?
Yes. Is Ryan Clayton or Bob Creamer behind this operation to keep calling my cell phone hundreds of times to prevent me from making an outgoing phone call? Simple question. Yes, you have called my cell phone hundreds and hundreds of times. I don't know who you are. I've asked you to stop. I'm unable to make an outgoing phone call. I'm unable to conduct Project Veritas business. We expose reality. You try to shut us down by not allowing me to make outgoing phone calls. Why are you doing this? And the American people want to know because right now you're on video. So go ahead and tell me why you're doing it. Go ahead. And they hang up the phone. And she's going to call right back in a moment. But this is the type of stuff that we have to deal with. We expose truth. They harass. We expose truth. They manufacture. they tried to prevent. And the fact that we're calling them out, Ryan Clayton and Bob Kramer, you know, Ryan Clayton has in fact planted Russian flags in people's hands before. He's thrown himself down the stairs and told the NYPD that I did it. But this is what and I want to show you something. Look at this. All day long. All day. I'm going to try to get that in frame here. The lighting's right.
Those are the call logs he's showing, by the way, but his screen is a bit too bright. I think maybe the quality, if I was to adjust it right, or if he's going to try to get it in frame, it'll be more visible. But the thing is, the more often that they keep calling, there's evidence of all the call logs there. So you can easily have that jotted down as evidence. So in most cases, there's things doesn't just happen for no reason. Someone is going to be doing it for a specific faction, right? So the fact that someone's obviously deliberately doing it, that's evidence. So the question is, who benefits from those actions taking place?
Right, all day long. All day long.
Looks like all those recent calls, even though the time stamps are there, it says no caller ID. But guess what? There's a way to undo that. There's a way to find out exactly who that is that's calling. I'm not going to get into all of that. You know, if you all want to find out about that yourself, you can look that up. But even a phone number, yeah, that really does become problematic. But you see, if you can see the number, you can track it. But if there's no caller ID, then there's a way to undo that to still track it. But it's like I said before, it's like a double-edged blade to where it can benefit you, but it also can work against you as well. Be careful of who you give your phone number out to. Just saying, just because of that fact.
All I can say is that all we can do is put them on blast. That's all we can do. Hello? Yes, again, the American people, you're on video. You're being live streamed. Why do you keep harassing my cell phone? And are you working with Ryan Clayton? She won't answer. She's going to call back the phone. We can keep playing this game. See that? No call ID, no call ID, no caller ID. No caller ID, no caller ID. All day long. No caller ID, no caller ID. The best disinfectant is sunlight. If they call me in the airport, I answer the phone, I take my iPad out. No caller ID, no caller ID, no caller ID. No caller ID.
Basically, if they want to play a scenario like that, like a game, then shine light onto the activity of which they're doing. Show that that there is perpetration going on, and shining that light on it basically goes against the exact thing that they're trying to get. It's exactly what they're trying to have going on, which is why it's it's a very good key element to expose those who would actually have incentives of actually getting certain folks involved. So the question is, who has the power to recruit folks within the vicinity of where you live and get them trained in becoming agent provocateurs? Who has those connections? Who has the incentive to do that? Who has a reason to do that is where it comes down to. When you're able to name these people, it all comes right down into the light to where you're actually able to hold that against them.
ID, no caller ID, no caller ID, all day, literally all day long. So I'm just going to wait here and see if she calls back.
But you want to know what else we can take from this? The repetition. The fact that it keeps happening over and over and over again. That is the same scenario that these perpetrators use, is the repetition. So I think that's just gonna, that tactic right there that they're using with that bot, that's just rinse repeat. That's all that is. They're just gonna keep doing that until you find, and you see when they act out like that, we're fine. Let's find a way to basically use those attempts against them. Right? Such as if they prank call me, I'm going to find a way to be able to track down exactly who owns that number, and exactly where it's coming from. Because for one thing, let's be honest here. How the fuck did they get the number, for one, and who gave it to them is two. That's a good question. Who gave them the number, and how did they get a hold of it? Those are two really good questions right there. Because there's no, if it's someone you don't know, there's no there's really no other explanation unless, it's related to someone who's a stalker, of any other excuse that, that they should ever have that information. They shouldn't. I'm gonna see if there's any other videos that might be relevant. Now, just for the record, this isn't to deter, um, you know, basically distract or anything like that, or derail the what Varieties is doing with their videos on shining a light on the corruption within politics or whatever. This is only to basically point out the key elements that are similar to a targeted individual's targeting, because there are really good similarities between the two. They're awfully close. The repetition, the hiring of agent provocateurs, the fact that you got folks who are planted and pre-placed on key, during key amounts of times, all of that stuff stands out. Let's see. Undercover Chicago Democratic election judges pretend to what?
So this week, Trump officially
Pretend to be Republican judges. Now that gets closer to a lot of the corruption in the court systems. I had a suspicious feeling that even the judges would be somewhat corrupt as well, but I should have expected that. I guess what doesn't help this situation in a bit is the bribes that that can be paid off to a judge or whatever, right?
officially won the presidency, winning the Electoral College vote. Every day in the media, you hear about how Russia was involved in this election. Russia hacked emails. Maybe Russia rigged the election. What we don't see as much is the voter fraud that takes place on our own soil. How the elections might be unfair, messy, or undisciplined affairs on our own soil. President Obama says that voter fraud is, quote, not to be found. He's made statements that we should trust the institutions themselves and not even question what happens here. In this investigation, Project Veritas takes you to Chicago, and we show you what happens with some of the election judges there.
What's the difference here? The Republican
Ooh, that's loud.
exactly.
That is way too loud.
And you don't have to be a Republican to be a Republican judge.
So according to Illinois state law, there has to be 5 election judges. It's supposed to be a mixture of Democrats and Republicans. That doesn't exactly look like that's happening here, as you'll see in this tape.
Can I just ask too what the Republican judge means?
Oh, you know what? I'm just a judge.
I'm sorry. Huh?
Get paid. You should be a Republican, a Green, but okay, what it is.
But why does it have to be a Republican judge? I don't get that.
Oh, they have to have Republicans and Democrats and yeah, that's all.
Oh, but you don't have to be a Republican.
I'm a Democrat, but I'm working under the Republicans. You have to have so many Republicans and so many Democrats.
Oh my God, she just admitted to it right there, dude. Man.
So both Democrat and Republican parties are supposed to appoint and place election judges across the state to monitor voting. It seems that in order to satisfy these election rules, they're just playing games with party labels. Here you have the lady say, I just want to get paid. I don't give a flip. I'm not even.
And there you go. Now, like I stated before, I have not voted ever in my life. I have not voted for either side because I just don't trust either one of them. It's not to say that there aren't good people on either sides with good intentions, but unfortunately, the corruption overshadows that tremendously because of how much is allowed to go on. If there was some goodness that's coming out of this, it's not much. I'm telling you that right now, because otherwise we would have seen a dramatic change in the flow of how things have been proceeding. But lo and behold, we still have targeted individuals. That's still a thing, and it's a problem because the targeting should have needs to stop. People needs to stop being used as guinea pigs for these psychological operations, for these illegal proceedings that are taking place, which is basically destroying the peace and liberty and rights of so many different people. This needs to stop for real. But it just goes to show you if that's how people feel who are in some of these places of who actually pass law, who actually are judging folks like that. That's their mentality. I can't say this is everybody because this is just the mentality of just a single person. But it goes to show you that, with the atmosphere like that, then it kind of reflects how it's allowed to remain. Since this is Chicago, I'll bring up another thing that happened. I worked at this place that was a pantry, and I won't say when this happened, but I think this was I believe this was the mayor. It was during Thanksgiving. What was happening was we were making Thanksgiving baskets for the public, right? Everybody who was there was busting their asses off getting those bags ready for the public. There were so many people that were just rushing in who were in need. This bastard who was running for mayor goes in there with his photographer, right? And this was the first time I actually seen corruption done in front of me without a damn care. The guy didn't give a shit. He walks in there, has his, he takes a bag of one of the ones we already have made, has his photographer photographs this guy who's running for mayor, right? Pretending like he was busting his ass making bags. That dude didn't make no damn bags. No. After he did that, he walks off as if that was it. 1 week later, there's a newspaper coming out of the photograph that was taken there. And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? I watched that man literally fabricate something, and it wasn't just me who saw him, it was other folks too. And I was literally disgusted by that. I'm like, do we really have people out there like that who do corruptive shit like that? Honestly? And sure enough, there are people who don't care. They'll literally use things to try to fool the public into making them look like Mr. Nice Guy, when in reality, they're just corrupt as fuck. Honestly.
Republican, really. Again, messiness, unfairness. These aren't Russians. These are supposed to be judges in Chicago, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing in our country.
Oh, so you're a Republican?
No. For this election, it may be Republican.
Oh, so you voted for Trump?
No, I didn't.
Oh. Oh, Hillary? Yeah, that's what I voted for. So you voted for Hillary? So why do you have to be a Republican?
Because that's how the election, that's how they decided to. They gave me my assignment, told me where I'm going, and they gave me I can't say nothing about it. Do I vote Republican?
So technically, he's not a Republican, just like I don't give a green flip. These people don't understand their civic responsibility to engage in a fair and disciplined election. Again, not Russians. This is happening in Chicago. And those weren't the only polling locations in Chicago where a Republican judge wasn't actually a Republican.
Excuse me, what are the judges? Like, what is that? I just keep seeing the stickers everywhere.
The process of voting.
Oh, so it's not like legal judges.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We got none of those on the ballot. No, we just did it as your vote process.
Okay. Wait, so are you voting for Trump if you're the Republican?
So what's the purpose of the rule then? How can you work as a Republican judge if you're a Democrat? How can you claim to represent these rules and then say you don't actually have to be the political affiliation that you're supposed to be? The idea of having both parties is to ensure fairness. And when both parties aren't represented, fairness isn't ensured. Democracy is messy. And as you can see, we have our problems in this country during our own elections. Let's focus on these issues. Journalists, let's investigate and expose these things before you make claims, sometimes hyperbolic, about foreigners being involved in our elections.
And that's the end of that video. Wow, 2 hours and 30 over, just about to be over 30 minutes. Yeah, 31 minutes now. It's about to hit as soon as after the 50 mark is done. I'm impressed at how long these videos are. This video alone was only 4 minutes. The other ones were at least no more than a half, or at least somewhere over a half hour or somewhere under a half hour. Not a half hour, but at least 15 minutes long. But I'm impressed that I was able to stretch that out to at least 2 hours and 30 minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream there. If you guys want to go over to Project Variety's channel, just check out the last video I had uploaded, and you can find a link in the description there. Hope everyone has a wonderful Saturday. I wish the best of health to both you and your families. Take care and stay strong out there.